We in it.
Oh, yeah. All the daddios in the house say yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we should actually also be live
Actually.
be live on Instagram right now. Not on the Daddio one. We're on mine because
Okay.
I don't think the Daddio account I don't think can go live yet. Either it's too new
because it doesn't
or not
have like
people
enough
follow
followers.
it or whatever.
Yeah, that's cool though that it's
I'm still you're a little late. You kept pushing back the time,
I know.
and which is fine. But I've been trying to figure out how to get TikTok to. I want to be live on TikTok when we do this because that's where I have the
Yeah.
biggest following. I think people would watch, but I can't. I think the problem is the like on computer TikTok live studio thing only
Mhm.
works on Windows, and I don't have a Windows machine.
I have a Windows machine. If there's any way that I'm able to do it,
We probably.
But
I mean,
we can
I
talk
think we
about
could
that.
do it to yours.
Everyone's like, I'm glad I'm watching this Instagram live of them discuss how they just landed on the moon, like, and figured out how to do Instagram live.
Yeah, or they're trying to figure out. Well, I didn't realize it wasn't an option. We do this in Riverside, dear listeners.
We do this in Riverside, which is also the name of our new CW young teen show called
sounds
We
it a
Do
bit.
This in Riverside.
But so we've had Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube set up for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of weeks that we've done this. But Instagram wasn't an option, but I figured out while I was looking to try to get TikTok to work, I found the workaround to get it live on Instagram. So we should be there too. No one's watching anything. This isn't even the normal day we do this. We're doing it a day early. We're doing
it $1 short.
What I would consider
a reasonable time. In your unreasonable sweater.
Yeah, I watched this just for you, bud.
With your urine. With your hot Dan piss.
It's Dave. It's Dave Piss.
Dan Piss is his brother. It's like Gallagher too. Dan Piss. Daniel is his God-given name, but he goes by Dan the Man Pierce.
How you been?
I've been good. Had a good show, which on this past Saturday, I forgot. I had been trying to avoid two days of the year that I'm trying to avoid doing shows because they've not been great. St. Paddy's Day, or when people are celebrating St. Paddy's Day, and New Year's Eve. Those are the 2 nights of the year that I just don't. I just haven't had good luck with audiences because they just realize, I think, like 20 minutes into it that they don't want to be there, that they wish they were somewhere else.
Right. Oh, we messed up.
Yeah. But that's kind of like, and I don't,
for this
I don't think that's just me. Like even when I worked at the Funny Bone as a server through a handful of different New Year's Eves, I saw that like on people for like names like Cedric the Entertainer or whatever, like for New Year's Eve, people are like, yeah, I like Cedric, but even 20 minutes into that, they're just like, and how much we're here until midnight and the ball drops inside this mall in Newport, Kentucky. Like, fuck, like this was a bad choice. But to say all that, I have had actually a decent St. Paddy's Day show once before, and then there was an awful one, so it's 50-50. I can add this one up from this last Saturday as a good one. It was Tippy Creek Winery in Indiana, Leesburg, and Brent Terhune and David Brooks are doing it Easter weekend next month, so they're really picking their holiday weekends, which I'm like, I wouldn't do that, but and I do a Seth Rogen.
You think people are going to be rowdy on Easter?
No, I think. Well, here's the thing: is their shows are at 6 p.m.
Which
being done by 8 and like an out the door.
Your fun aunt is having a great time at a 6 p.m. winery show. Let me tell you.
But so John Holmes,
your Easter finest.
John Holmes, who was my opener, like we rolling up there at like 5 o'clock, and there's these people drinking. Like there's this literal table of grandmas sitting up front, like book club grandmas. They had those like vacuum sealed cheeses and meats, like pre-wrapped.
Oh, the finest meats and cheeses and all.
With a roll of Ritz crackers that they didn't buy there, that they brought themselves.
Classic grandma material. Yeah.
So, like when I did mother-in-law jokes, they all thought it was the funniest fucking thing
Sure.
ever because they're all looking at each other like, we are that way.
We are
We are that way.
mothers-in-law, yes,
Yeah, we
yes.
are mother-in-laws and we do
treat
our thing.
Son-in-laws poorly.
No, but no. See, that's the thing is, like, there's with Brenda, my mother-in-law, she treats me fantastic. When she came and moved
Same.
and
I got a good
lived
one of
with
those.
us,
Your mother-in-law treats me fantastically.
but when she when my father-in-law passed away,
Mhm.
R.I.P. Paul, OG, actually not OG Paul, his dad was Paul, but this is one of his hats that I wear routinely. Which remind me later, I want
Did
to
he play
bring
for
up
the
San Francisco Giants. He didn't play for them. It was just
I
one
knew
of his-
SF, but I wasn't sure
Yeah.
like what other teams would maybe be there. I had to guess on.
San Francisco. Were you thinking Padres? San Diego Padres? No, you're like, I don't know baseball. That's okay. But when Paul passed, we brought her up to live with us, and at that time Anna was newly 3. And so it was literally a house of women. It was my mother-in-law, it was Allie, and
Yeah.
Anna, after a very quick, like, woman lived in Florida since 1990 or 1989. So to then come up to northern Kentucky where there's seasons and there's snow, like, that was jarring. But also she uprooted her whole life in 6 months and handled it really well, like was pretty strong. But when we had her move up with us, I was like, I'm gonna have to work really hard. Like, I don't want to have your classic like sitcom cantankerous relationship
Oh, sure.
with mother-in-law.
You
But
know
it turns
Kristen
out,
Stone.
yeah, but like Brenda and I talked a lot. Like, I mean, she wanted that, like with missing her husband, who she talked with. They're very conversational. They weren't
Yeah.
the couple that's just like quiet. Not like my parents who like roll Yahtzee or play Tickets to Ride so they don't have to have conversations. Love talking to her. There's a couple idiosyncrasies that she has that, which I mentioned in the stand-up, which are actually true. They are the
Mhm.
2 things that bug me. She can't eat anything spicy, and that includes table pepper.
Yeah. Insists on going to Chili's. Yeah.
Insist on going to yeah, and she keeps on buying us tea towels, which are decorative hand towels.
Yeah.
The people who got not along during those 6 months were Allie, my wife, and her mom, because they hadn't lived together in over 25 years. And they are both different people, but we have scripts, like amongst friends, amongst family members, when we have parts that we play in those scripts, that when you're back with them, you are Glenn, you are Bill's son, you are.
Yeah.
There's just a
Oh,
way that you.
I love my parents. I do not care to live with them ever again in my life.
If they needed it, though, would you?
I maybe, but that's covered because they're putting an addition on my brother's house and moving in with him. So great job. Yeah. Again,
which
I love my brother
one?
too. Don't want to live with him either.
Which one would
My
you?
youngest brother.
No,
Oh,
but I'm saying
which parent?
Which parent, if you had to?
I'm adding the context.
Are you
if I'm
doing
only-
pros and cons?
No, I'm adding the context in my head of if it's only one of them.
And one of them has lost the other one, so this is a new
I'm
experience for them that they
thinking
don't know.
One dead parent or divorce, and it's like, well, like I'm the sitcom premise of my mom or dad.
My 80-year-old parents got divorced, and I'm 50. That would be like your mom is just like with a new dude every night.
Yeah. They've been married over 40 years.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty well committed at this point,
Yeah.
Um,
There's a myriad. Again, one of the bits that I want to bring up to you that I've have told is on stage is like, this is a truthful thing and there's not really a joke. I'm just telling you exactly word for word what it is. That's one of the things I want to bring up of being the best and worst of our parents. But even my parents, vastly different people. The history of both of them coming together and everything that they then had with the family and blah, 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 tracks for
Mhm.
where they both come from. But man, like when they have their differences, it is just easily, it's just like, well, yeah, because you were this way and you were this way. You are different. Like, you are different people fundamentally. My mom comes from a large family and is still greatly connected with that extended family. I mean, I have like 100 cousins and like 200 second cousins and some third cousins from my mom's family.
That's my wife's side.
Yeah. My dad
Huge.
has nothing. Like, my dad had a dad that he bought the gas station from that worked in Cincinnati, and there's some great stories with that. But my dad didn't have. I've never, since a baby, met my dad's sister. There's not any extended family because, like, his mom, when she died, requested a good side of her family not allowed to come to the funeral. Like, it's like all of this deep, rich,
Sure.
like, family stuff that the reason why my mom and dad are different are so apparent. So when they get in, like, bicker, like, they used to watch my my mom's dad and stepmom bicker. They would play canasta with him every Friday, and usually I could rent a movie or a video game and bring to their house.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you in
And
on the game.
so when I was real little, I used to come in and like dance like to
I don't
James
know how to
Brown,
play
like,
canasta.
ooh, that I think that'd be a game you might dig. But you're not. Are you a card guy?
A little bit. Poker is fun.
Okay,
I'm very
like,
good at the game Hearts.
like Texas Hold'em poker, or
Well,
like what kind of poker?
whatever is on offer, you know.
Mhm.
I think from like a game theory standpoint, Texas Hold'em is the most.
The easiest buy-in.
It like makes the most sense. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of like the term for it.
Well, because within the rules of Texas Hold'em, you're playing an open hand that we all can see. So it's almost like if that were used as a way to teach 5-card stud, like poker.
Yeah, that's not fun to me.
Yeah.
5-card stud. I mean, where it's like you just have 5 cards.
Yes.
Best hand wins. The rounds of betting in Texas Hold'em are around new information is being introduced.
Yes. It's almost like it's almost like the game Werewolf. Like,
yeah,
when like there's
the
some
game
elements
of it. And again, I don't like to gamble. Like I would rather
No.
I would rather have like 5 of my friends come over and we all just like
Yes.
put $20 in a hat, and then whoever wins at the end of the night gets $100 and feels
That's
great.
That's more
Everybody
than we
else
used to
is
do.
down $20, you know?
In college, we used to go over to my friend's house, who was the kid who had a stepdad. I don't even think it was his dad, raising him and his brother.
Mhm.
So, and he was always working, always gone. We would play Texas Hold'em, start at like 9 o'clock at night, and we would go to like 7 o'clock in the morning. And our buy-ins were $2.
Mhm.
So, like, if you won, or if you agreed to split the pot, you were going to get like $10,
Yeah.
$20
So you feel like a
max.
champ, you know?
Yeah.
But everyone else isn't like furious that they lost the mortgage payment.
Or like, oh my god, my little girl has jacked up teeth and
Well,
she's
I've
gonna.
I mean, I'm in casinos a fair amount as an entertainer, but it's not like, oh, I can't wait to, sit down at the craps table or what. It's if there's like a poker tournament, if I'm doing a weekend at a casino, right? And Saturday morning there's like a 10 a.m. low stakes buy-in poker tournament, I'll go do that, it'll kill some time. I like playing the game, and it's like, well, if you lose, you lose like
you and the oldest Jewish men, like, just sitting there, and they're like, how old are you? And you're just like, I'm the youngest one at this table for this low stakes. But yeah,
right. I mean, I don't want to drop $500 on a poker tournament and lose $500. But if it's $50 and it's like, well, yeah, I spent an afternoon playing a game I enjoy playing. I don't have $50 anymore, but they kept bringing me Diet Cokes, and it was a nice couple hours,
that wiring is like, I don't know what kind of nature that is, because we obviously, I think
you mean.
But I mean, so frugal is that what you would call it? Because I'm the exact same way. Like,
I will spend money on things
that you justify that's worth spending money on.
Yeah. like I have a Steam Deck, right? A fairly expensive video game system that you can like travel with.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, I travel a lot. I like playing video games. I don't like being on an airplane. If I'm killing time in a city I've never been in, I'm more than happy to just sit in a hotel and play Balatro for a couple hours than I am to like, go
Explore.
talk to people. No, thank
Yeah.
you. So it's like, yeah, it was, I forget how much it cost, but it's like a couple $100. But now I frequently will use that in a hotel room instead of like go somewhere and spend money on something else. It's like, yeah, I'll just hang out and do this thing I like doing. It has been great on planes, except for it is a little bigger. That's why I got. It's right here. I picked this up. My parents gave me just a gift card for Christmas because they're like, we're out of ideas, man. We've known you a long time. We don't know anymore. So they just gave me a gift card, and I used it on this little. It's called a Mew Mini Plus. It's a little retro handheld. It can play a lot of different games from a lot of different like early video game systems. I've only really played Dr. Mario on it, but it is so much smaller. Because when I went out to Minnesota and I flew, we were talking about a couple weeks ago, because the booking agent who set up the travel got like basic ass economy where it's like you can't. Not only can you not bring a bag, we're not even going to let you buy the option to bring a bag.
You can take 3 breaths and 2 farts on this flight.
So I had it was an overnight trip. I'm like, I'm not checking a bag for an overnight trip, like a carry-on. I mean, so I have like a little crossbody bag like thing that I usually just bring around, essentially as a purse. And it's like I could fit an overnight trip into this thing. But
I have a suit bag, and this became purely from Dry Bar. One of the clips and the zippers broke on it. It was via Amazon. It was a new company, but it is a suit bag that completely folds up in a trifold to be a duffel bag, and like put a pair of dress shoes in it and a couple little things in the middle. But that also works in the dimensions for flights as a like your own like personal bag, almost like a not a computer bag, but like slightly bigger. And so Dry Bar is how I started doing that. And then that is kind of my travel bag because similarly to you, like I'm not going and painting the town red when we're going to Florida. Yeah. My other clothes for that weekend are, depending on location, if it needs to be sweatpants or it can be shorts. I'm going to be wearing t-shirts and shorts the whole rest of the time that we're sitting in the hotel or walk into the Publix to get the gross ass Beetlejuice Fanta.
That's so good.
People thought we were out of talking about our Florida trip.
There's always more. Yeah, so I grabbed the Steam Deck because I usually bring that for airplane trips, and it's like, oh, this is like half this bag. It is because I wore my show clothes on the flight. I had a more comfortable like pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt or whatever in the bag. And it's like, I don't think I can fit everything I want to fit if I put the Steam Deck in there. But the Mew Mini just fits in like the inside suit pocket. It's like, it wasn't a terribly long flight. It's like, yeah, I'll play Dr. Mario for 3 hours. It'll be fine. Oh boy. Oh, he even muted it. I was worried. I thought he was going to blow my ears out with his hot snots. What a courteous friend.
Hot snots. I'm trying to be professional because what I'm doing this week is so a daddy-daughter moment to bring into the daddy-o of it all.
Yeah.
Is yesterday I did a morning news appearance. I mean, would have killed you. It was at 9:00 in the morning and we had to be live on the news talking about our new film Sweetmeats.
Mm-hmm.
My wife Allie and my daughter Anna, Allie teaches at Taylor Mill and Anna goes to Taylor Mill kindergarten. And so they were off yesterday for development day or whatever. They chose St. Patty's Day, which seems calculated and speaks more to the teachers of Taylor Mill.
Development Day, yeah. I know what Hangover Day is. Kentucky Teachers Union. I know what you did.
Kentucky. We're not even. I mean, Matt Bevins, ex-governor of Kentucky, who might be future governor after Andy Beshears has pissed off everybody for 2 terms, even though he's a fine government official. Matt Bevins said that teachers are paid too much.
Mm.
He's pretty cool.
They're not actually.
No.
I did a show years ago in Philadelphia. It was my friend Lemaire Lee hosted it. I forget the name of it, but it's basically the premise of the show is comics come on. You send in a list of your bad opinions, and he picks one that you have to like defend to the crowd, and then they use another one to introduce you. The one I defended was, I don't think, I forget how I worded it. Basically, it's that everyone's like, "Oh, teachers should be paid more," and I agree. But I saw there's a thing on Facebook that I saw years ago, and people are like, "Oh, so a football player can make $8 million a year. That teachers should make that much money, and football players should make." I'm like, "Nah, dog. Football players absolutely deserve that money, and teachers do not deserve to make $1 million.
$8 million.
That was my bad opinion. It's like, I'm not saying teachers don't deserve to be paid well. Obviously they do.
Yes.
Everyone does. Socialism kicks ass. Universal basic income for everybody. But the argument was, well, those players are getting that money because the owners and the NFL is making billions of dollars off of them to like destroy their bodies in a couple of years. They absolutely does it. Like, teachers are so important and they do incredible work, but you are not generating billions of dollars.
The fact that there aren't more movies of the week, I mean, I don't think that's a thing that happens anymore in our current like streaming climate, that aren't just like, and here's a young athlete who was given $10 million at 19. And like, and here's the next year where he was on the streets. Like,
yeah. I mean, abolish the NFL, but if it still exists, the players should be making more money than anybody.
So Allie and I talked about this with our boys.
The means of production, everybody.
The one text. So the boys have become an age where if I'm gone for a show, Allie feels comfortable putting them both to bed. We don't need a grandparent to come over or anybody to assist for basically bedtime. They are on schedules. They are big enough and they can wait and blah, blah, blah. And Anna can deal. So this past Saturday at the St. Patty's Day show that we did, Allie was by herself getting everybody to bed. But then I got a text. Paul just face planted. Ooh. And then when he popped up, he's covered in blood. She's like, I'm just letting you know because I FaceTime your brother Eric, who's a doctor, who then did an additional added to the call FaceTime of a pediatrician friend of his who like looked at it. It was just like, if he doesn't do this, this, or this, or if he blah, 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 after this, like he's good. You don't need to go to ER. But it was one of those things of just like, yeah, like our boys are going to be just these goobers and these monsters that are just like Paul especially has just like new bruises or a scrape or something on his body continuously.
I took my youngest daughter a couple weeks ago to a trampoline park for a birthday party for a kid in her class, and then I was talking about it in the comedy class that I was teaching. My like the teacher's aide, they call it the classroom buddy at Steel Stacks, and I was like, guys, these are adults with dignity.
Buddy,
just call them a teacher's assistant. So my teacher's assistant was my friend Craig.
No, it was your buddy.
Who he and I, my friend Jaya Peck, shout out to Jaya. I'll bring him up again later in the show. Jaya I taught a sketch writing class at Steel Stacks years ago because they had a bunch of improv classes. They were doing stand up and they're like, we want to add other comedy things, but like it's a fairly small comedy community. Like who can teach what? And I was like, I did the UCB sketch writing program. I have a screenwriting degree. Like yeah, I'll take a run at that.
And some
So-
of your like you have a like a memorial wall of like some of the most famous people that have taken that classes, like includes like John Mulaney, Donald Glover. Like you have some notable people that took that class and have
Yeah.
ascended in the comedy world.
Yeah. I mean, that's where the script for Apple Gravity came out of. And Dr. Baby, both written while I was taking those classes.
Again, both phenomenal,
Yeah.
both very funny, and
My Sketch
except-
201 teacher did not like either of them.
how? Why? Like, what was the reason? What was the justification of criticism?
Apple Gravity, I genuinely don't think she got the joke that I think she genuinely didn't know enough about Isaac Newton or the fact that he's the one who developed the theory of gravity for it to even register as like, this is comedy. Dr. Baby, she's like, well, they wouldn't let a baby be a surgeon.
And you're like, no.
And
I
I'm
was like, you need to say, I don't understand sketch comedy or comedy.
Yeah.
This is my opinion, but you get an A, like 100% because you did the assignment.
She's like, but they would never let a baby be a surgeon. I was like, it's pretty clear in the opening voiceover that he was given a license to practice medicine instead of a birth certificate because he was born at his mom's med school graduation. The logic makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
but
it is supported like opening like late 70s, early 80s,
yeah.
like drama. Well, I had an English teacher. I had an AP English teacher who read my portfolio. And so the teachers that grade the portfolios, whatever they're called in schools, when you turn in different written assignments, she outed herself as being one of the people who audited my portfolio for the year.
Sure.
And she was just like, oh, that poem you wrote, that children's poem, A Duck in the Door. And I was just like, yeah. It was like a duck in the door, a duck in the door. How did a duck get stuck in the door? Well, he jumped off the table and onto the floor. A duck in the door, a duck in the door. I just also realized we haven't done the theme song yet. This is the latest in an episode.
We're hanging 10, and I'm not talking about the massive hog on Glen. Slinging our jokes for ladies and blokes, trying to entertain folks. It's a daddy-o beach party, surfs up on the wave of laughter. It's a daddy-o beach party, so what if Glen's dong is bigger? It's a daddy-o beach party, so let's drop the whole thing about Glen's ridiculously long and quite girthy slong. It's a daddy-o beach party song. Yeah, his dick is huge. Can we move on?
Well done. But before, the reason I brought up Jaya, so he took the sketch writing class when I taught it, and then he is teaching it now at Steel Stacks. If anybody wants to take a sketch writing class, take it from my friend Jai Peck. He's very funny.
The apprentice has become the master. Did he like Dr. Baby and Apple Gravity?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good taste.
The first time he was teaching it, he was like, or maybe one of the times he did it, maybe 2 years ago. I shared it online. I was like, hey, if anybody wants to take Jai's class, I'm going to sign up. And he thought I was kidding, but then day one of class, I'm there, and he's like, why are you taking this from me? I took it from you. Like, you know how to do this already. And I was like, right, but the only times I will write sketches is when I'm in a sketch comedy class. There's literally nothing stopping me from after we hang up on this call to like sit down and write a sketch. But
so
there's no real reason to. If I give my friend Jaya $100 and he will be disappointed in me if I don't show up on Sunday morning with a script in hand.
Yeah, and meet the assignment
to do it.
Well, I don't think we've talked on this program that you were one of the heavy contributors to Weekend Pup Date during COVID.
Yeah.
that you wrote a lot of the lengthy bits. I think that became God, this ties into so finishing up that my wife and daughter were available yesterday to come
Yeah.
to the news studio to see me do live on air in a news studio
That must have been nice.
to promote Sweetmeats. It was awesome. And it was like going to the whenever they do a backstage like bit on SNL
Mhm.
and they show like a horse and Abraham Lincoln. Because it was St. Patrick's Day, there was a lot of different kind of guests.
Yeah.
There was a bar. There was these Irish girl dancers who were not that much older than Anna dancing before we went on.
Was she showing
to-
them her moves? It's like, this is
Yeah.
how you do it.
No, it was just good sequencing by local CBS to have like teenage girls doing Irish dancing and then do a movie about cannibalism.
Sure.
Just
Yeah, yeah.
just real good.
Perfect lead in.
But anyway, she really dug it, like enjoyed the spectacle of all of it. And but before we went, because we can't tell Anna due to her ADHD and whatever that's going on with her, we can't tell her things like a day in advance. We have to tell her the day of, and
Yeah.
like not within a 3-hour window, like something's got to be happening that we mention. So we're like, we're going to go to the news this morning. And Allie was like, do you know what the news is? Because we don't like play the news in our house
Yeah.
or whatever, or talk about it really. And she's like, yeah, that's that thing that Daddy does with a puppet in the basement,
Yeah.
the puppet Norman.
Kinda.
And I was like, oh, that's funny. I was like, that is what you think the news is, because that is the only experience. Like, because we showed her old Weekend Pup Date when she was a
Guy
baby.
Smiley, is that the Muppet newscaster? Guy
Nor-
Smiley.
Yeah, ours is Norm McDonfelt, you
Yeah.
son of a bitch.
No, the Sesame Street one.
Fuck that.
Dickhead. I know the one you made. I'm trying to remember the Muppet.
I don't care about the Muppet. They've had their day in the sun. Norm McDonfelt deserves
But
his.
yes, I wrote a lot of jokes for a puppet during the pandemic.
But you wrote like, so I thought that was funny that
Mr.
that was
Toybato, right?
Anna's,
That Toybato came on as a correspondent for a couple things.
which was hilarious. You did a whole thing about the Confederate statues being
I
pulled
believe you.
down.
I do not remember a single goddamn thing that I wrote 3 years ago, man.
Well, so you and I then, so you submitted the thing that was about during COVID, the different Confederate, like Robert E. Lee statues were being pulled down because,
Sure, as they should be.
yeah, as they should be. I mean, also there's too many statues to old white dudes. But you sent in a piece about tearing those down, and I was just like, oh, we should also incorporate all of these other like fun celebrity statues, because statues are ridiculous. Like, they're inherently like, why do we need to have a constantly living like wax figure of this thing, of Rocky Balboa or of Charlie Chaplin or Lucille Ball or like
Yeah,
whatever?
take that, Michelangelo, you dickhead. Or Raphael, which one was I think Michelangelo was also a sculptor, right?
No, keep going.
He did,
Yeah,
the,
like
he did the ceiling famously.
famously.
But I
yeah.
think he did some sculptures too.
Did he do Michael? Like, or not
I
Michael, but
didn't. I know
David,
that.
David, the
David,
statue of David,
Famously small hog, huge statue man.
not as big as Glenn.
You'd think it would be bigger, you know? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I wrote. I don't remember. I believe you, but I don't remember the bit that I wrote.
You rate.
I do
so
know
you wrote some really
Lisa
great
Loeb
stuff.
on that show, and I was like, "This is incredible."
Gary, we had Gary Kroger of SNL, like, who was on like for 4 seasons. So I'm
sure,
yeah,
but
he was on for 4 seasons during the Ebersol years. But like
which
famous,
which one of those guests was more influential on a little 12-year-old me when the video for Stay came on MTV while he's getting ready for school? You know?
oh, and still a smoke show. Like, I'm sorry, like. So her agent that like responded, because we again casted the net. We talked
Was
about
the
Michael
agent like, "Hey, don't be weird"? They saw how old you were, and they're like, "Hey,
the
hey,
agent was like, she
we
was
know
like,
you're gonna want to be weird. Don't be weird."
she has to do a new song off her new album, which was
Yeah.
fantastic. But she's like, she's not doing Stay. And I was like, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But her comment, her agent was, Lisa loves puppets.
Who doesn't? I mean, a lot of
And
people,
so that was
but
like the only
people
reason
love
that
them.
we got Lisa
Yeah.
Loeb. But yeah, we had a ridiculous amount of like talented people send in these goofy little guest videos.
It's wild what you can get people to do when there's nowhere to go and you can't leave the house. You know, they're pretty on board.
A lot of the stuff that you wrote, whether you remember or not,
I do not.
For Weekend Pup Date, it's something that I wish, like we talked about, you love stand-up more than I do. Stuff like that, of like putting together like a show running list or whatever, or different jokes and stuff. I love that so much more than the live aspect of, say, like stand-up.
Disagree, but okay. I mean, we can like different stuff, man.
I
like doing that. I like having a little project, you know, but typically how that plays out for me the last decade or so is like, well, I'm like the next hour that I'm working towards now, like that is what is occupying what, like when I was in college and, you know, trying to do film, it's like, well, there's always a script that I'm working on, or we're always in production on a short, or there's always a thing. Before, I guess kind of in between my first album and then when I did Good Grief and Dry Bar, it's like, well, I'm doing stand-up a lot, but it's just, there's not like an end goal. I just keep doing it, and I like doing it. I like doing it more when it's like, oh, I am working towards a goal. It's like how I feel about video games a lot of the time. Like I would rather play, you know, a one-player video game with a story that ends than I would to like jump on and just randomly play strangers in Halo Online or whatever, you know?
Which is interesting though, because like stand-up, I don't think I've ever heard it put that way, is there isn't an end. Like you can have little mini ends, like to make an album, to make a special, to whatever, but ultimately it is a single player game that doesn't have an end.
I love about it. But like all my friends who do improv are like, oh, we love that, you know, you're up there with friends and like you have a team. I was like, that's why I don't want to do it. I don't want to have a team on stage with me. I want to, if I mess up and make them look bad, I will feel bad. Or if you guys make me look bad, I'll feel bad. But honestly, I'm more worried about being the one that messes it up for everybody. But I don't know. I like, especially during the pandemic, where like, I wasn't touring. I wasn't doing any, I was doing some virtual shows, but it's like, I don't have anything going on. When you're like, hey, I'm going to do a puppet show. Hell yeah, man. I will write jokes for your weird little puppet. Give me something to do. A friend of mine.
Awesome. Like getting those, like, just like sifting through. So Sharia Mattis, Lucas, who also submitted, and Sharia ended up becoming like head writer for the second season. Like, the best part of it, besides doom scrolling, and which is why it ended, because when it got too close to the election, I was just like, I don't like knowing as much as I do.
Jokes about the news aren't as much fun, you know?
Yeah, it got hard. Like, and then with everything with COVID deniers, vaccine denier, like it stops becoming. Someone just shared a thing that said political joke videos in 2004. For the election between George W. Bush and John Kerry. Yeah. And it was like jib jab, funny stuff, or like Will Ferrell being George W. Bush during a political ad, like hammering a fence.
Yeah.
And then it was like versus 2024. Like, here's the political joke landscape. And it's just oh. So do we become more gloom and doom, or is stuff that more severe?
Well, things are more severe, like, and everyone is sadder about it because everything's objectively worse. Was that like a rhetorical question? The world is worse now than it was in 2004.
I don't know. So it is hard for me. So something that keeps me in check and something that keeps me balanced as a person, or I would say maybe my personal barometer, is that everything has changed and nothing has changed.
Yeah, you said that last time and it didn't make sense then either.
But so like the whole
or maybe
idea
2 weeks ago, you said it on the podcast before.
It's
And
a
I just
bumper
kinda-
sticker that I have on my Ford Focus.
Of course you
My
do.
2000. No, I don't have bumper stickers. Bumper stickers are awful.
Yeah.
We've
We've talked about it.
Yeah,
but
we've
they're
talked-
dumb. You look dumb. You look dumb. If you put a sticker on your car, you look dumb. Maybe like one little one, you know? You can get away with like
My kid's an honor student.
I get like that's fine. Like
You're not going to shit on the kid though, and that's where it comes in that you don't want to object to it.
that's the thing.
If
Right.
you're just like, that's proud, that's
yeah,
nice.
but I mean,
like,
be proud of your kid.
yeah.
I don't know. I had like I made Mr. Toybato bumper stickers around the release. Of, or
Wait,
not
you
bumper-
marketed your own thing?
not bumper stickers, just stickers,
Okay.
like little.
Stickers. Yeah.
I misspoke. Just little square. I hired Neil Florence, an artist that I really like, to draw Mr. Toybato in his. He's like a pretty distinct like
Classic
kind of
robot.
adorable style. No, Neil. I mean, the robot is just a garbage toy we put on the baby registry at Babies R Us. But I'm like, this is probably copyrighted. But if I get an artist to draw him, then it's a separate thing. So Neil Sorens is an artist that I really like, who I found through Twitter. He was drawing in the Doctor Who comic books. There would be like a 2-page story at the end where like it's Neil doing it in a pretty adorable style. And I was like, oh, Mr. Toybato would look great like that. So I commissioned him to do this drawing. And then if the first album, like that's the physical CD, that's what's on it, is that art. And then I also had stickers. And then a couple years after it came out, I went to meet up at my friend's house to work on some other project, and he had it on his car. And I was like, that's really sweet. I'm surprised it held up really well. Like it had been on there for a while.
Oh, good sticker.
But he had like a couple other ones, and it's like, you got too many stickers.
You're like, as a big fan and creator of Mr. Toybato, I would get rid of everything else and just keep
like
Mr. Toybato.
But it's like a fairly small, little rounded square.
It's like a tattoo.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm sorry, like it's the here's my weird like playing on each side of the fence of tattoos. I am either for 1 or 1,000.
Oh, I'm all for people doing whatever they want to do.
Yes, obviously. I mean, I'm not gonna.
But I have one. That little dot is a tattoo. That was a drawing accident with a metal quill because I'm very cool and I do cool stuff. But I don't have like another one. Like,
and you also write Civil War letters. You're like, it has been a fortnight since I've been in your loving embrace.
I was inking a comic book panel, and
with a feathered quill.
No, with
that metal
102 crow quill.
Yes. Sorry,
but it metal and pointy, and when it's covered in ink and goes into your arm, that's permanent, baby.
Wait, how did you do it?
So I had a drafting table, right?
Yeah.
The angled
slanted.
Thing. It had like a lip, right? Put the quill down, not flat, like up and down.
Yeah.
Reached across the table, brought it
vertical.
Back. The quill just like it drew a line, and then it got caught, and then the bottom of the quill went into that edge, and I picked my arm up, and it's just dangling.
That is a fucking Final Destination kill where it makes it look like it's a suicide of like, if you had died for your art.
I did have the thought of like, oh, that's how tattoos happen. This is now. That's probably going to be forever, huh?
Now, if you were the origin story, go back like, I mean, obviously tribal is where I would guess tattoos kind of started. The etymology.
I thought you meant like if you, my friend Glenn, were going to get a tattoo on purpose, full tribal, right? You'd get the full barbed wire armband. That's what I think of when I think of you.
just prison rules, just coming in like, here's what Glenn Tickle's all about, brother.
Yeah, if I were to get one, I thought about it over the years. I think bat symbol was like middle school me. I'm like, if I get a tattoo one day, it's gonna be the bat symbol. But 41-year-old me I wouldn't hate having a Bandit Healer tattoo.
Okay.
But I feel like there's got to be so many of those now that I love Bluey. I genuinely think Bandit Healer is one of the greatest dad characters in the history of all media. I'm not overstating this to be hyperbolic. I genuinely believe that in my heart. In terms of dads portrayed in media, I don't think it gets better than Bandit Healer.
But I also think he is the worst portrayal of dads.
Wrong, because that's
it's
the
good.
opposite of what I just said.
It's right. Point and counterpoint, motherfucker. You ignorant slut. I think also Bandit Healer, when watched under a binge eye, as those episodes often are when your children get older, they watch 15 of them in a row to fill up the 2 hours. He is also in a Jacob's Ladder hellscape where he has to be the best dad ever and is exhausted and is in a Groundhog's Day scenario.
No, see,
because he is too good of a dad. He's inspiring you and I to be like, hey, man.
Such an interesting character.
Because he's in fucking, he's in Dante's Inferno.
Like, I think the scale goes from, Al Bundy, or, Homer.
Yeah.
Of just, although
Fred Flintstone,
pretty good.
I
dad.
think
Fred?
pretty good dad. Yeah, but
but I'm saying
honeymoon.
Alan,
but it's so Fred Flintstone was
bottom
honeymooners was because I don't think they had a kid on the Honeymooners, and the Flintstones is the Honeymooners set in the prehistoric age.
That came later because that's how you keep viewers.
Yeah, exactly. And then Barney, everybody was having kids. That was the revival of them. Then you get the Jetsons. Then you get the cartoon dads. But then you also then get besides Al Bundy, you start getting the dads of the 80s like Bob Uecker and Mr. Belvedere, who's just I'm a single dad. I'm doing the best I can. I need this British staunch guy to or who's the boss? You're getting broken families or representations of that, even with Brady Bunch. Yeah, sorry. Yes, I'm going down now a history of
those sure are other dads.
TV show dads.
No, but I'm saying most dads in media, at least modern media, are either horrible or perfect. There's Al Bundy, horrible dad, husband, person, right? Almost in the All in the Family way of you're not he's the main character of the show, so we know you're going to root for him because that's how we experience media. But he's not an example for you, right? The joke is
you're better
this guy
than him.
Sucks.
Yeah,
and
isn't it good that there's somebody who has it worse than you do?
Yeah, we all get to kind of laugh at Al Bundy more than we're but also there's relatable aspects to that character. Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're right. He's the porn parody version of All in the Family for the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. And then you get
Seinfeld, and they have no kid. Yeah, Full House is good.
Oh, this guy, the house is perfectly clean. He has a good job. He loves his kids.
But there needs to be 3 versions of a dad to make the one perfect.
Voice, but then he goes in and makes you a sandwich and apologizes. He's a perfect dad. Where it's that's unrealistic depiction of parenting.
It is realistic in the world in the weird world that they set up.
Right. I mean, because you have your brother
Joey. You have Joey and Uncle Jesse who are they're all figuring it out. It is 3 men and a baby for television.
Yeah. But Danny is the one who is perfect,
final word. Yeah. But he's not always right.
Well, I mean, he is the biological father of the children until Jesse has kids later. But it is he is running the show, right? He is this perfect example of a man trying to keep it together.
But hey, Glenn, he's not perfect. He's having a hard time keeping it together.
Well, that's why he's got But so if the spectrum is Al Bundy to Danny Tanner.
Oh, okay.
Total mess.
You wouldn't say Dr. Huxtable?
No,
is the more No, I'm saying Dr. Huxtable, not Bill Cosby. Dr.
No,
Huxtable
Bill
is a
Cosby, the other
television dad.
aside, no,
Yes.
he's not. He is not a perfect dad. I watched
No,
a lot
I'm-
of that show. I don't anymore, just to be clear. But
court ordered.
he wasn't a bad dad, but
I think he was the most realistic. So like even like Family Ties, like their push and pull is like we're these hippies amongst the yuppies universe, and we gave birth to a yuppie. Like,
yeah.
so it's
My
not the
biggest
mother-in-law
fear, honestly, as
his
leftist
Family
trash is
Ties,
like, oh god, if I have an Alex P. Keaton, oof,
a junior Republican, would you debate your daughter? One of your daughters?
I don't know. I don't.
Or would you let her be like, yep, you're like, yep, go that way?
My youngest daughter told me she wants to be very rich, and I told her she's not allowed to be.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's like, I want to be really rich. It's like, nah, dog, you can't. And then we had a long discussion on how even though they like Taylor Swift very much, it's still immoral that she has so much money. And they
wait, it's immoral?
Yeah.
Is it not just gross and disgusting? Does it have anything to do with morals?
Yes. It is
So you
immoral
think-
to hoard wealth.
You think moralistically removing like any kind of religious tyings, right?
Yeah,
Because
you can have
that's
morals without religion. You know that, right, bud?
yeah, but there's a real like, are you born with it, or like maybe it's Maybelline? Like what are the base
What
morals
is the
of?
point you're trying to make?
No, it's not a point.
Morality doesn't come from religion.
No, but not everybody shares the same morality. So morality isn't inherent. Morality could be taught.
Right, but there is
Morality is shaped like religion.
But I think there is objective.
We can
right and
think
wrong.
that we can think that
You
there
can disagree
is.
with what that is and isn't, but there's objective immorality.
We think so, but again, that's based on the upbringing. So, like, if you were doing an untampered,
just because you disagree with something doesn't mean it's not objectively true, right? Like, if I go burn your house down, that's immoral. I shouldn't do that. That's a bad thing that I've done. But if I'm like, well, I was raised to think burning your friend's house down is actually cool and good, that doesn't mean the thing that I did is cool and good.
I don't know. I think
do. I'm pretty confident in this stance.
When Daddios gets real.
Yeah. But there's no moral way for any one person to have or be worth $1 billion.
I don't think it is. So what would you then say would be the recourse for her to not be
Give
immoralistically
money
living?
away.
Do you think she does?
She does that. Honestly, my 6-year-old was like, well, she came with receipts. She's like, she donates to this charity.
Good.
I'm like, that's great. Not enough. You know, if she's still worth $1 billion, you've not donated enough money. But they're like, well, her catalog is worth $1 billion. It's like, okay, break it up. It's great that she got it back from that guy who was shitty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the full details of that, but donate the rights to Love Story to a charity. You know, like the Red Cross now owns the royalties for 1989, the album. You know,
But you know as much as I do, like that shit gets murky too when it's corporations who are for charities and how that money then gets spent and used.
yeah, dog.
I don't know. I think
capitalism
there's
is bad.
yes.
I don't know what to tell you. But yes,
We talked about this when we were talking about Glenn Tickle for mayor. Like you don't want to have the responsibility of.
I don't want to have any responsibility. I don't want to be in charge of anything. It seems hard, but yeah, my 6-year-old said that she wanted to be very rich. I told her she wasn't allowed to, and I don't remember why. Oh, so Bandit Healer.
Yes, Bandit Healer.
The best portrayal. I don't mean he's the best dad. I mean he's the best portrayal of a father in.
Well, do you think Chili is the
modern
best
media.
portrayal of a mother?
She's very good, and the thing is, I think moms are typically portrayed differently in media, where like there's a lot of very good moms and things.
Yeah,
So
a lot of matriarchs
I feel
within.
like, yeah, you can. As I'm not a mom, so I spend less time thinking about the show through how it portrays Chili versus Bandit. But I think Bandit is the best portrayal of a dad in media because he is not perfect. He is
Mhm.
trying very hard to be, does not always get it right. When he messes up, there's like repercussions and he acknowledges them. He is not, everybody loves Raymond. He's like, God, I wish my dumb kids would leave me alone so I could watch the big game. Like, there's two episodes where Bandit is trying to watch sports on TV, and the kids
and
are
he tries to convince them through playing with them that
Yeah.
like it's part of the play. We watch this
where
game.
it is acknowledging that, like, yeah, there is a thing this guy would rather be doing right now than play with his kids, but he understands my kids are more important than watching Australian rules football or whatever it is he's trying to watch. But then there's the other episode where like the whole family gets together and they watch it with their neighbors, and then like they are bringing the kids into that experience. So it is a thing where it's like I've talked about it a bunch. I don't like sports. I will never be like, oh God, leave me alone, kids, so I can watch baseball. But I will frequently throw a chess tournament on the TV, and it's like, hey, God, can you guys stop? I'm trying to watch this. And they're like, it is just two people sitting at a board staring at each other. It's like, I know, and I love it. But then it is like, well, yeah, like I will try to teach my kids how chess works, like why this game is so exciting, why, what the commentators are talking about, what daddy would do if I was playing in this game. And they don't care, but it's like, yeah, I don't kick them out of the house so I can watch sports or whatever. But again, I'm sure there's 4,000 dudes with a Bandit Healer tattoo that I would not want to be associated with. And I think that's what stops me from wanting to get
Blue
one.
Lives Matter and a Bandit Healer tattoo. What an interesting combination.
Yeah, like it's how, like, I really like comic books. I'm not going to wear a Superman shirt to the gym, I mean, well, Superman's boring, bad example, but
you son of a bitch.
there's
you could have just said, I'm not going to wear a Superman shirt to the gym.
I know.
You didn't have to say
to
Superman's boring. Yeah.
I did it to hurt you.
That was pointed.
But a lot of the dudes wearing Superman jerseys to the gym, aren't reading the comic, it's just like, oh, big strong man. I'm gonna be big strong man. Like
100%. But the majority of the people that I see that wear superhero shirts to the gym,
dorks like me. I got Spider-Man one I wear sometimes.
And look, as goofy as it is, like we're not like 5-year-olds or 4-year-olds who are wearing like princess outfits or the Spider-Man costumes to the grocery store. But isn't it that version? Like if you wear like a crest of something that's like a superhero that's like stronger than you, that like you catch the reflection of yourself and you're like, I don't want to fucking look at my own flabby face and sweaty, like dangling or whatever. I'm like, oh.
I mean, I got Batman shirts.
But you see the Superman shirt and you're just like, yeah, be like Superman. Or just like, it's the same reason like I used to put on Rocky IV.
If it keeps you going at the gym, hey, do what you got to do in there. I hate doing it. But yeah, like if you don't actually give a shit about Superman as a character, you just think he big strong man. If I wear a shirt, I be big strong man. And that gets you through,
That's so demonstrative of like the people of like, why I'll be big strong.
Yeah. Like I listen to video game music at the gym where it's like, yeah, I know I'm not Mega Man, but if I'm on the treadmill and the Mega Man 2 soundtrack comes on the mix, it's going to get me through the next couple of minutes on the treadmill.
You're running side scroller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, also the Mega Man soundtrack kicks ass, but
yeah.
So I think as much respect as I have for Bandit Healer, I have a little bandit toy that lives in my suitcase. Because again, like as a guy who travels a lot for work, like I miss my kids. I feel bad that I leave. That's why the episode, my kids have actually kind of fallen off of Bluey lately, so it's not on as much. but the
Yeah,
one where
Anna doesn't watch it as much unless we're all watching something together,
Curry
and she knows
Quest.
that it's something that oh, what is it?
the
Curry
episode
Quest?
Curry Quest, where they're bringing curry to their neighbor,
Yes,
and
and
then
Bingo. It's a Bingo and Bandit
Bingo
episode.
finds out that Bandit has to leave for like 6 weeks.
Yep.
Oh boy, that wrecks my ass every time because I purposefully keep trips pretty short because my kids are so young. But
Oh yeah,
it's
my
still, like,
friend's in the Navy and has missed like multiple Christmases and will be deployed for like 6
Yeah.
months or 3 months. And whenever I'm gone for like a long weekend, like I've started instituting. I left Anna a folder because she's being able to start to read more.
Mhm.
It's notes for Anna. So every time I leave, before I leave, I write her like a fucking Civil War letter that like what
That's very
detailing like, what I'm going to do. But here's the thing: is this past weekend I forgot because I thought she was having overnight at Nana's,
Yeah.
and so like she FaceTimed me before the show, and she's just like, "Where's
She
my
just wrote me
letter?"
a note.
Yeah, and I was just like, "Ooh, sorry."
Yeah. But I do think if there's some kind of catalog that tattoo artists could arrange for me of like dudes who got a Bandit tattoo, although honestly, I've heard from other guys with kids who are like, I hate that show, I hate Bandit, and it is because they're like, he makes it look so easy. I'm like, so you're threatened by a cartoon dog making you look like you aren't trying hard enough?
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe try harder, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
you should try harder, but it is a good like
well, that's the octopus episode, right? There's
goalpost.
There's the friend's dad where the little Dalmatian girl straight up tells her dad, she's like, you're not as fun as Bluey's dad. And it's like that episode is in there because I don't know this for a fact. I didn't hear an interview or whatever, but like that's in season 2, I believe. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure the creators of Bluey heard from a lot of people be like, Bandit's making us look bad. So it's like, well, yeah, but like then this guy kind of the Dalmatian dad like steps up and he's like, all right, you're right. I am not Bandit Healer, but I am your dad. I care about you a lot. Here's how you and I will connect over like learning octopus facts or whatever. That's why I think the show's so good. But again, I don't think I'm gonna get a Bandit tattoo because I think
I just don't want a tattoo.
I don't really want one, you know.
Yeah.
The one I think if you're like, well, you have to, right? You have to go see your friend from elementary school, Matt, who's a tattoo artist now. You have an appointment after this call. You cannot leave that room until you have a tattoo.
Who you knew like famously would like had a notebook full of different kind of dick drawings.
Probably.
You're like,
for
go
sure.
get a tattoo from him.
I think it would be the Venn diagram that explains benign violation theory is, I think, what it would be. I joked about it the last couple times I taught the stand-up class because it's a thing that I bring up. So if you're not familiar, listener, benign violation theory was developed by Dr. Peter McGraw. It is an attempt to like explain universally why something is funny. And I don't know that I 100% think it nails it, but
No.
it is better than any other explanation that I've heard where it's like, oh, you know, comedy's about surprise. Yeah, no, it can be. But also, like, if I rewatch The Jerk, there's not a lot of surprise there anymore. It's a movie I've seen 50 times. It's still funny when he picks up a bunch of stuff from his office and walks out in a bathrobe.
Yeah,
I know what he's going to pick up. I can do that monologue, but
I had never seen, and I guess it's on Tubi now, but a movie that I wanted to see, but it had to get a disc physical DVD copy when I was up in Michigan a few weeks ago, is a David Wayne, Michael Showalter movie called They Came Together.
yeah,
And it's basically what if Wet Hot was the traditional rom-com that we know nowadays. It's done the exact same way. A lot of similar cast members. Like watching that, I was just like,
you have to get a
Yeah.
Is that not on? Wasn't that a Netflix movie?
it was on something that it wasn't, and it was one of that was like hard to find. I think it's on Tubi now because I shot it over after I watched it. I was just like, oh my god! I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a movie I would love to make. It's very in the vein of like a Naked Gun or
Mhm.
whatever, but like just so well made. But like that kind of humor I love that they explore every expression of humor. So, like, sometimes there is the straightforward joke where it's exactly what you think as the audience it's going to be, and it's just as funny. So that doesn't mean that it subverts your expectations like Surprise would. So that theory, like, yeah, that is one way of approaching it, but there are so many split like trees that
Well,
go off.
when like a couple people have McGraw and journalist Caleb Warren wrote a book called The Humor Code about the theory, and they like travel to different parts of the country to talk about culturally what makes different people laugh as they try to come up with like this theory that explains everything. And somebody challenges the idea. They're like, well, that doesn't cover everything. And the response is like, give me an example where it doesn't work. And then they're like trying to come up with it. And he's like, well, here's how benign violation theory applies. And it's like, yeah, I can't. So basically the theory says for something to be funny, it has to be both a violation of some kind, whether that is like of morals, of cultural standards, of a person's personal space. They talk about tickling a lot as an example, where like if I tickle my kids, they will laugh, right? It is a simulated attack. That's the violation, right? I am essentially attacking them, but it is benign because they know it's just daddy. He's not going to hurt me, right? He's just being a goof. If you do it, a guy my children have never met,
Yeah.
they're probably not going to laugh. They're like, why is this weird man touching me?
And
So
it's aggressive. It's aggressive. It's
It's the same violation, but it is not benign. So it's the same thing with jokes of like, you know, if I do a joke about 9/11, right, that is a violation. That is like a sad, tragic event in our nation's history. The benign part has to be that the joke balances out how offensive it is that I'm making a joke about a tragedy. And it is interesting because like, that's not true. It's not, people react to things differently, right? So what makes something benign for one person or group of people doesn't mean it is universally benign. That's why I don't like when edgelord comics are like, oh, it's just a joke. I don't care. I don't care if it's just a joke. It's not a good joke. And the thing you said still sucks, even if you said it because you were trying to make a joke.
and
And they're like, oh, well, the audience laughed. Right. The audience of people that I also probably don't like, who have different morals than me, laughed at the terrible thing you said. Good on you, bud. So that falls in the middle of that Venn diagram, because for that person to say that thing to those people, it still gets a laugh, but it's not universally true for everybody. But it is a thing that I talk about a lot in the stand-up class. And it's like, I should just get, because I have to like bring up the slide a lot every time I talk. I'm like, I should just get it tattooed on my arm. So when I start talking about it, I can just be like, so here on this side, we have a violation. Over here, the word benign. And then in the middle is like funny or whatever.
So can I bring up good segue to 2 bits to see
Yeah,
if
and
you
I'm
can
going to finish
pinpoint
talking about why I brought up my friend Craig half an hour ago.
that'll be the positive wrap up. So if like what the violations are of these 2 supposed bits. So one kind of goes with how I'm looking right now is, and stop me if we've talked about this on a different episode. It's a bit that I had been working with traveling comedian Kim Sherwood, that I want to start formulating into a bit for my act, which is that there are 2 types of guys. There are nerds, there are sports guys, and then there are sports guys and there are cosplayer nerds. But sports guys who think they're on the opposite end of the spectrum are just like, I would never do anything as nerdy as dress up is a thing that I love. And it's like, oh, but you do, because if you go to a sporting event, you wear a ball cap,
Oh,
and a
sure.
jersey.
You got your, you know,
You just do-
sportsman jersey. You are full on doing cosplay.
You are 2/3
Sure.
representing what you see on stage. You just draw the line at the pantalones, like everything from the waist down, because then you're not going to wear cleats. You're not going to wear the tight pants, because then you're like, that's too much. And I was like, what's funny is then there's even a third group where it's the guys that dress up like the managers with the headphones, the cans like
That's
on
how
the
you
side
look
of the
right
field.
now, by the way.
I know, that's how I look right now. But like there are even these shirts that have like the Bengal, like the Cincinnati Bengals logo that match the hat. There are some dudes that dress like that on the regular day to day.
Oh,
And it's
they're
just like,
everywhere.
oh, you're an accountant, or like, oh, you're a lawyer, or
Yeah.
oh, you're a banker, or oh, you're like whatever. You are cosplaying. You like the power that this look brings. So what is the violation there? Is
you're
criticizing?
you're making fun of those people, basically.
Okay.
Where I think in a benign way, I don't think any sports fan is gonna be like, how dare you say I caught, like, it is not,
Yeah.
it's an insult, but it's not a hurtful one, you know? But the other
It's
thing,
an insult at that, like, you think you are better than, and those other people are nerdier because they're going full tilt, and you're just like, I can only tip my toes, like, in the water.
I mean, you're
just a
also
little
throwing
bit.
like nerd cosplayers under the bus a little bit as like the
Obviously,
example.
yeah.
But the thing that is interesting about benign violation theory is that like if it goes too far in either direction, the joke doesn't work. You know, if
Oh,
it,
because
like,
you're ostracizing, because then it's just a rally.
no, I mean, like if it's like too much of a softball, then like the joke's not funny because it's not enough of a violation. But I think there's something there for this bit of like, yeah, you're basically doing cosplay. Because the violation is like, I'm making fun of the way that you dress. And then it is benign because it's like, well, I mean, most people dress that way or acknowledge that that's like a pretty normal way to dress. It's not like,
But they would never call it cosplaying.
right. They would, like, that's the joke is like,
Yeah.
you are doing the same thing that like people who put on a Deadpool outfit and go to Comic-Con are doing.
If it were just from the waist up.
Yeah, I feel like the shitty version of this is to be like, oh, like fucking furries, right? Like they dress up as wolves or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
Where
that
it's
would
like,
be the big shit.
You're just making fun of these people. It is not particularly benign. Where like, yeah, other dickheads will laugh at you making fun of furries, but also like,
Interesting.
It's a joke that I've heard 40,000 times from people.
You just saying that though, is that Bill Burr's style? Is to bring up all these audience members like fucking furries is fucking weird, isn't it? Like this, and they do all this, and everyone's like, yeah, furries are weird and we hate them. Oh man, it's just like going to like the Boston Red Sox game and like someone's wearing an old like Babe Ruth uniform, like blah 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 blah. Isn't that fucking annoying? And then he's just like, and they're all like, oh, you know what? You're right.
Oh,
the same way that I feel about that. Yeah, I feel like that is his style.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. But I don't think I would. I mean, and maybe obviously, maybe then would never be as funny or whatever in the way he'd do it because he's much more skilled or has, you know, that base for that. I would more present it as like, hey, like anybody, if you are somebody that goes to sporting events, you can never shit on someone who goes to a convention and cosplays because you are 2/3 there.
Right.
You're just not as committed to the bit.
3 hours grilling hot dogs. You're in your little outfit.
You're making up your lineup and like, yeah, like this is, I'm going to fantasy. I'm going to fantasy. This is who I.
Last year I did a corporate gig for a company that does like youth sports training where like, I guess if a school doesn't have a coach, they just hire this company and then like they're the I don't know. I
Rent-A-Dad
could not have been less interested in the actual details of what this company does.
Yeah.
But I brought my friend to open, Tyler Rothrock, because like he is much more like a sporto. I know he had jokes about sports.
And he wore his shorts.
Like golf pro, and it's like,
that's the show where he wore the shorts and he did not dress up.
It's like, can you come do like 10, 15, like work in your sports jokes so I can cover that area? And then when I got up, it's like, I brought Tyler because I don't know anything about what you guys actually do. And it's like, but I know, like, I have a lot of friends who play fantasy sports, and it's like, I know a D&D character sheet when I see one, right? Like, you're rolling initiative as much as anybody else is. And it's like, I'm sure a version of that joke has been made. It's not going to make it into like the hour, you know, but it's like, if I'm contextually of like, I'm doing a show for sports people who have accidentally hired me, a huge nerd, to entertain them. It's like, I'm going to point that out. But yeah, so Tyler, I'm sure I bring up a lot on the show, but I've known him for a long time. He's good. Love that Tyler Rothrock.
The other premise to see the violation theory,
Yeah.
to see it executed before you double back and close the tab, is that this is something I've said before. It is just 100% true statement, but I almost did it as an act out. Was something came up in the show off the cuff, and I brought up the premise of we are the best and the worst of our parents, and that, you know, my dad tried to secretly build a 1960s Batmobile without my mom knowing, and he had the balls
See, that's why
to
we
put
got Rick on.
he had the balls to put the bubbled the glass, the windshield,
The most
under the
recognizable part.
besides the door with like the bat symbol,
Yeah,
like parked underneath.
I would figure he would paint it later, you know.
He had this is when he was in the gas station. So the car that he bought for the Chalice was at the gas station. So that's how he was hiding that lie, which I was fully aware of. The bubble windshields that are very prominent, and my mom knows what they are.
Mhm.
They're living underneath the bed they sleep in.
How high's that bed?
It was a pretty high bed. It was one of those like Robin Hood, like
They got like a big loft
Big
bed,
four-post.
like 12-year-old.
4-post beds, not as high, but it was pretty high. Had a little step stool to get up into it, like a queen size, but like
Okay.
extravagant bed. And so one day, my mom and I remember watching this from the hallway. She's like, "Hey Rick, what are these?" And like points down at the cardboard boxes where you can see they are the bubble windshields. And he was just like, "Oh, I don't know. What are those like? Those curtain fixtures? There's like new curtain fixtures." And he knows what they are. And I know that he knows what they are. And he's just
Right.
fucking lying to my mom. And so like I'm watching back and forth. And she's like, "No, those aren't." She's like, "Are you trying to build a Batmobile?" And then my dad got indignant and went, "What if I am?"
I love it.
And like my mom was like, "If you move forward with this, we are getting a divorce." Like stopgap. Like this
I'd
is
marry Rick.
this is it. And so what's great is like my dad had jokingly said he also had an office down the hall that was across the hallway from my room.
Mhm.
He had talked about his office closet perfectly lined up with the garage and the laundry room in the basement, that he was like, I could make that closet a double pull
Yeah, you
that we could slide down all the way to the basement in the laundry room, because it would go through two different rooms that,
Mhm.
you know, it doesn't matter if they have poles going through them. And my mom was just like, "No, we have young children, you maniac."
I'm sure your mom's a nice lady. It does sound like she lacks vision. I think I'm 100% on Rick's side on all of these endeavors.
So I brought that up of like, we're the best and the worst of our parents. Like no matter what what my wife Allie could say and complain about me, I have how many years and days we've been together as a couple on the job without trying to build a Batmobile secretly, and then getting upset with her when she calls me out for the thing that I am 100% trying to do.
Yeah. Your dad kicks ass. I've been trying. I bring it up sometimes where I talk about my kids and how my older daughter is so much like my wife and my younger daughter is so much like me. And then the tag to it is, well, not our best traits, you know, like not the stuff we choose to pass on. And it works about half the time or gets like a little laugh. And I think it deserves more. And I think what it is it skews too far on the violation side of like, well, you're pointing out that your kids have unadmirable traits, you know, where like so much of my act is about my kids, but it's about a weird thing that they do. It is not saying like, oh, these dumb kids, right? It's like, I think pretty clear to anyone who watches my material that I love my kids. But then when it's like, oh, it's my wife, this one's like my wife, this one's like me, like, oh, but like all the bad stuff that we hate about ourselves. Like that's, if I worded it that way, I don't think it would ever work. But if I was like, well, not our best traits, like then I think that is it like softens it a little bit.
I disagree.
But
I disagree if you did go in hard. So there is I don't know how I feel about it. And again, I don't know if it fits my voice. I don't know if my voice is slightly changing into even more curmudgeon.
I mean, it's an exciting time in any young man's life. You know, you're gonna find some hair in new places. It's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, ears, nose. I had to get so that Kevin Smith 37-hour film trailer or short that we did.
You have to
There was a
CGI
couple.
out your ear hair.
No, there was some tight shots on my nose where there was some massive nose hairs. So guess what I did before the premiere this weekend? Bought off of Amazon a Manscaped nose hair trimmer that I've just been jabbing up in there.
I mean, hey, ear hair is less of a, like it's always in there, even when you're a little kid. It becomes more of a reality in your late 30s and your 40s.
But I think what you just said of being pointed. So one of the things I've been saying is at the amusement parks or like jump zones or whatever, like our kids have too common of hairs or looks from above. Like when you're trying to like see all these like 100 kids just like scurrying in just the tops of their heads because they're short. I was like, that's when it really pays.
What do you?
Well, I mean, that's like
Why
they're in the ball pits.
GTA
they're on the
2 sky view.
top view.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of what these places are, though. Or like you're seeing them from afar because you're not trying to be like right on top of whatever they are, whatever. When you
my
have
kids pretty insistently need to be 3 inches away from me at all times. Not my decision. I want to be clear.
They like having the closest.
Especially my youngest. Like when we went to that birthday party at the trampoline park. It's like, go play with your friends. Like I am
not your friend.
Yeah, I'm your ride. Go play. And she's like, Daddy, come over here with me. I'll go. I can watch you just as easily from over here as if you make me walk over. Like, just go play with other children.
You're like, do I have to start doing things that make me less interesting to you? Like, so you like leave the nest? But my thing was, I was like, that in that moment is when I realized when my friend was visiting from Hawaii, who has a bright red haired ginger kid. It's like, it's good to have a kid of that like hair color. It's like, yes, that one is mine. So like, if you were to directly say like, my kid has these traits, the things that like I hate the most about my wife, I don't know. That to you might feel like something that you wish you wouldn't want to say, but isn't there truth to it?
Well, no, I
by
want to
over
say
dramatizing.
it, and I do. I say it a
Right.
lot. It's a joke that I wrote. Like I say,
No, but I'm saying, but you don't say. You do the soft pedaled version. I think there is just
not
as
our best
much.
trait. It's not. Yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh, here's what I hate about my wife and 12-year-old. Like that sucks. Like that's 80s comedy boom.
If you
ass bullshit is what
it is. If you didn't subvert it.
Right.
I think making the claim while also packaging it in the smarter way and the obviously the heart that you have and the love, because it is filled out by this. But so you think it's detrimental and it's damaging to say the extreme for effect. Even if you package it.
If it's I don't have a longer version of that joke, and it doesn't even really lead anywhere. I think that is the other reason it doesn't, like, that's not a strong enough end. Like it should be more of a setup to another story, but
that pays
it's
off
not there yet. But
okay.
To tie up the trampoline park thing, so Craig, who I was talking about, he took Jaya's sketch writing class just as a student, was in there with me, and then he was my teacher's assistant for this last round of stand-up.
Your buddy.
He is also a surgeon, and when when I mentioned that I brought my daughter to a trampoline park, he's like, I wouldn't. He's like, and one of the guys in the class was an emergency room nurse. He's like, yeah, no, we see kids all the time straight from the trampoline park into the ER. And I was like, yeah, I mean, kids get hurt doing all kinds of stuff. Like, yes, is my daughter statistically more likely to hurt herself at a trampoline park than she is at home? Maybe, but she spends an hour before bed every night just doing handstands in our living room. I'm like, yeah, she's gonna crash into something at some point and hurt herself.
If you incorporate a trampoline into any juvenile's life, they are infinitely more susceptible to having an injury via jumping or like from a distance of breaking a bone or whatever.
You're never going to protect your children from being hurt completely, No. That doesn't mean, hey, all bets are off. Get crazy with it out there, kids. But
yeah, let's get crazy. Let's get nuts.
I mean, my youngest daughter already broke her arm. She broke it. She fell off the monkey bars when she was 3. And that's another thing where like the ER is like, when they got in there, like, oh, it's a broken elbow. Was it monkey bars or trampoline? And it's like one of those two things is how little 3-year-olds break their arms, apparently.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean my kids aren't allowed to go on the monkey bars anymore. It's just like, I don't know, be careful.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to institute. You're actually probably going to go the other way if there is any residual like PTSD of monkey bars. You're going to be like, hey, you're going to try to normalize it. Like it's just a thing.
Oh, my kids,
happens.
neither child will go on a monkey bar now. They're off them. But again, it's not a rule. I'm not saying you're not allowed to go on the monkey bars. She's like, well, the last time I did that, I had to spend 2 days in a hospital and it kind of sucked. So no, thank you.
Well, and it's even doubly like for you, you're like, it's hard for me to witness you in pain and have to go through all this and comfort you. But also like it cost mommy and daddy $500 or whatever. Like,
so she broke it right before I flew out to do a comedy festival in Omaha.
And then you went, there goes all that money.
No, I went to the festival.
Oh, yeah. Oh, a festival you weren't being paid to be at. Like a festival just to perform?
Yeah, no, I submitted
okay.
and just to go do the set. And I was like, well, do I go? Like, but my my mother-in-law was around. My wife was able to take some time off of work. She was home from the hospital. It's like, I'm not going to do it. Like, if I stay home,
what am I going to do?
It's not going to improve. Her arm's not going to get fixed faster, you know? But I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave you in the hospital to go piss off to Omaha for a weekend, you know? But I went and then I did jokes about her breaking her arm, like at the festival, and they're on Crime League. And that was really fun because it's like, all right, this is an obvious violation. I'm making fun of my 3-year-old daughter who, I think the one set, it was like literally like the day after she got out of the hospital, where it's like the cast is still wet. And it's like, I'm making fun of what happened. But it's like, well, how do I make this benign enough for the jokes to work? Because it is objectively kind of a mean thing to do. And I think the joke, I mean, I think the jokes work. Obviously, I wouldn't have put them on an album. But
so that's it. It's a bigger, a little bit deeper of a hole. But I think where the reason why everything works with the violation idea is everything could be seen as a violation, like any approach to anything. And that's why it's like, well, tell us something that doesn't work. Because even if you're telling something about an observation that you've made about yourself, you're still telling on yourself. It's still violating a thought and opinion of somebody else or a judgment. So like my dad's story, I don't see that as a violation, except for I'm telling something that I witnessed, so it's violating their secrecy of
It is about your
their
parents,
relationship.
about your parents having kind of a fight. Like, yeah, you are highlighting a part of your parents' relationship that most people don't really hear about.
That would be unfavorable. Yeah. But again, though, as far as
your dad's doing a crazy thing, your mom's being a little controlling, where it's like, yeah, they're not.
No, my mom's not being controlling. My father tried to build a 60s Batmobile while lying.
Your dad tried to live his dream, and your mom was trying to crush his spirit. That's fine, you know?
You're saying that she knew what she married when...
I'm saying I want to buy a 1982 GMC custom van, and I want it to be the A-Team van. It's the car that I've wanted.
Would it constantly be running 24/7, the series, like at all times? Like, so when you step into the van,
like in the back, and you just it's on. Yeah, I mean, it's not a van. I have a little black Honda Fit hatchback, and except for the fact that it would go over like the passenger mirrors on the back, like I could paint a red stripe up the side of that, and it would look A-Team van adjacent enough. There's a little kind of spoiler above the hatch on mine, and it's like, paint that red, paint the line on the side.
paint that red. But what would your wife say? Would she be down for it?
If I painted the car I have now, she would probably say, why? And I was like, so that it looks like the A-Team van. She's like, all right, weirdo. I mean, I did a joke. So over the weekend, I did 2 shows. I did a church gig where it was like the church was like, oh, this is our like married couples night out. So I'm like, okay, I'm married. I will talk about my wife. And one of the points that I made, so I talked about my.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to remember what petty ass bitch text I got or in like adjacent from you. This is one I wanted to hear more of. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes. I'm very
So-
excited.
They're like, oh, it's for like married couples. So it's like, okay, yeah, like I have jokes about my wife. But I bring it up the fact that it's like, well, I don't have a lot of jokes about my wife. I have a ton about my kids. But I don't, and it's mainly because like there's not a lot of conflict between me and my wife.
Yeah.
I mean, conflict's not even the right word, because it's like kids do crazy stuff that like the conflict is like, you're learning how to be a person. I'm the one in charge of you navigating that. And the thing you just did is pretty buck wild, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's not like conflict in that I'm constantly fighting with my kids. It is just
Yeah.
like, guys, you do and say weird stuff all the time. But my wife, like, we get along well, like it's not like the 80s. Oh, my wife, right? The old
Yeah, and you're like, why did you
so,
marry her? Like, what
it's
was
like-
what was the shotgun wedding circumstance of why
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys had to be tied
It's like,
together
no,
for
I
the
like-
rest of your life?
I like spending time with her.
Yeah.
But I do have jokes about how like we have backyard chickens, which is again like a thing I think is weird. And after a show a couple weeks ago, I did the chicken joke, and the guy's like, "Why did you let your wife get chickens?" And I was like, "Oh, sir, I don't let my wife do anything." What are you talking about?
What a great way for you and I to let me know that we don't have to have a conversation.
Yeah. This is the last time you and me are ever going to talk, pal.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I don't let my wife do things. She's an adult with free will and income. Like,
And I don't own her.
Yeah,
And she's
it's
not
like,
my property.
even if it was 1950s style, like I'm the breadwinner, she's a stay-at-home mom. It's like, oh, she's spending all my money for weird chickens. Honestly, it's pretty much, it's usually the
I mean,
opposite.
I would also watch that show.
Yeah, but it's like, well, she doesn't need my permission to decide to get chickens. She told me that she wanted to get them, and I said, why? That seems like it's going to be more work than is necessary. And she says, well, yeah, but I really want them, and I'm the one who would be doing all that work. And it's like,
Mhm.
fair point. All right, have
Yep.
fun with your weird birds. But the joke version of that has become, it's like, yeah, I don't give my wife permission for things, nor do I really ask her for permission for things. It's just my wife and I have kind of like a mutually assured destruction agreement. As we're just entering deeper into our 40s, we just keep picking up weirder and weirder hobbies, and then just stare at the other one with like a David Attenborough like sense of wonder, where it's like, oh, so you're a chicken lady now. All right, that's wouldn't have seen
It
that coming.
checks. Or I mean, but it doesn't. But like, it's the Family Feud, like, show me my wife at 45, like whatever. And it's just like, huh, knowing who I know and the experience with you, like that tracks. Like I
Or
see
she's
this
like,
version of you.
So you bought a coffee roaster so that you can roast your own coffee
Yeah, and you said, look at my sweater and my glasses and my general malaise. Like,
because the grocery store stopped carrying the kind that you like.
yeah,
It's like,
that
yeah.
is Glenn Tickle.
It all-
That should
it
be in
all-
Glenn Tickle's biography.
the thing is, like, that move made so much sense to me, of like, the grocery store in my town had like a store brand, but it was like their fancy version of the store
Yeah.
brand, where it was
Still
just
cheaper
coffee.
than Starbucks or whatever.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like, not the $5 a bag store brand, but
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
like 7 or 8, like a little more, but like not specialty coffee, $20 a bag. you know?
Premium, but not.
Yeah. But it was good. My wife and I both liked it. So that's usually the kind that we would get. And then they stopped carrying it. And it's like, oh, well, it was a medium roast Tanzanian peaberry, if anybody's curious. And it's like, well, I'll just get a different brand. And it was like the jump from $7 or $8 a bag to like 20. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be spending that every week for a bag of coffee. And if I'm going to, right, I won't buy it from the grocery store. Like, there's coffee roasters in the area, or like people that I follow online for coffee. So I was like, well, I'll order it from them. And then it's like, it still seems really expensive. what if I just spend a bunch of money up front, learn a new skill, and then instead just take care of this myself? And it's like, this makes sense to me. And it's eventually cost effective, right? Like several years down the line, this will have been a good financial decision. But
And you also are that person that looks and has that air of just like, I'm going to pick up this thing and I'm going to learn about it because then I like that, but I also like the product that it's going to give me. And I'm
Right,
going to
like
I'm going to even maybe like the product more because now I'm invested in
Yeah.
its inception.
I really like coffee, especially since I stopped drinking alcohol. It's like, well, yeah, like it's nice to have a special little drink sometimes, you know,
Mhm.
where I watch all these videos of people making like really complicated cups of coffee, and a lot of the time the comments are like, just buy like a Mr. Coffee drip that, like, why does it have to be this overly complicated? And it's like, the complication is part of it. Like,
Yeah, that's such a fucking dumb statement. It's like, it's again like the
just buy
elevation
gas
of
station coffee, idiot. I
of
do.
well, I mean,
when
like
I'm on the road, and it's great. I love
oh
it.
oh,
But
one of my favorite treats is a place that still has like I do like that most gas stations have the bean the
yeah,
roaster machines
yeah,
now
that's
because
been a nice improvement in the past couple
it
of years.
is better. But I also do like a place that still has the powdered cappuccino machine where if it has English toffee, I'll do a little bit
Sure.
of that with some coffee because it's a nice little treat. But yeah, anybody who's just like, even like, okay, well, alcohol, you could have beer or you could have vodka tonic or you can make a Vukara, which is a New Orleans style Manhattan. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's fun to like go
Going
the
through
gamut.
process
Yeah.
of like figuring out the grind setting on my grinder for
Yes.
this kind of bean. If I'm gonna do, all right, I'm gonna make a pour over just for me, or all right, we're gonna do the French press today because I'm making coffee for me and my wife at the same time. So I got to go coarser grind, figure out like all that is
And it's also
part of what is enjoyable about coffee for me.
there's
know?
therapy. There's a therapeutic nature of like following steps
Mhm.
and creating a thing that then had more steps than just two steps, which obviously I get and understand as you do with having kids. There's sometimes where it's great where it's like step one, step two, bam,
Yeah,
done.
sometimes you're in a hurry, right? And
10 minutes.
the
But
people
then
who are
there's
like weird
sometimes
coffee snobs, or like, I would never drink coffee from a Sheets. I would and frequently do. It's not
yeah.
the best coffee.
I drink all kinds of coffee.
Yeah, I will make myself a very fancy cup of coffee, right? I'll do like a pour over of home roasted high end beans that I sourced from, wherever. And I will forget about it. And then I will find it the next day and it's cold. I will drink that coffee happily.
Well, that's what, again, Florida trip, like 2 of our days, we walked in the same city to these
Mhm.
different independent coffee places. And that's one of the things that I love. We just, this past Saturday, stopped a half hour outside of Leesburg into this small town for this restaurant called Ole, O-L-E, Marley's Old Marley's Bistro, and it was located in the sanctuary old church building in the basement of this antique mark. And they had spicy Cuban sandwiches and they had crab stuffed jalapeno poppers, which I thought were still just going to be like fried or whatever, but were those roasted
Boiled,
actual like
weirdly.
half
They just put them in a.
disgusting.
They didn't hold together.
Like,
It was like a
yeah,
sloppy
it
little
was
pile.
nasty.
Ugh.
And they just squirted like sour cream on it. And they were just like, it's a popper. But no, it's like this really nicely baked crab stuffed actual jalapeno,
Yeah.
like whatever, with some drizzle, whatever. And this Cuban sandwich that was amazing. It was so good and weird and congruous to like everything else about like the location. We're the only
Yeah.
people eating there, but we wanted to tell, like the cook came out and we were just like, this is amazing, like thank you. It was like one of our favorite, like we pulled off the exit and there was an old freestanding Pizza Hut and John Holmes is like, you never see one of those, we should go to that. And I was like, yes, but I was like, I love stopping at a mom and pop or a place
Mhm.
that I'm unaware of, like even if it bites you in the ass, just to get that experience because there's usually something added extra to the ambiance. and he looked this place up, and we saw this menu, and yeah, it ended up fulfilling like
Restaurants
exactly.
I'll be a little pickier about because
If you look at the
since I'm a
menu and they don't,
vegetarian,
yeah.
so it's like, well, I just got to make sure there's something I can, like, if I go to a barbecue place in Texas, straight up, there's probably nothing I can eat because even the vegetables are just like soaked in bacon fat
Yeah.
or whatever. Where it's like, well, yeah, I have to like look at it. I would rather go to somewhere like that than a Pizza Hut, but I ride or die for Domino's because Domino's is the same pizza across the country. You know, it's a B- anywhere you go.
Oh, B-, not even
yeah.
just a C+.
No, B-. And
All right.
but also like I ordered it at home because my kids will eat it. You know, like there's pizza places that I like better where it's like, well, yeah, I would actually much rather get pizza from here than Domino's, but
I want
if
to make
do
everybody
that,
happy.
You guys
Yeah.
won't eat dinner, so.
It's
sure,
mac and cheese. So growing up, I was a Kraft blue box. You boil the water, the powder, whatever, mac and cheese. My mom would make homemade mac and cheese for Christmas every year, and I'd be like, "No, thank you."
Yeah.
And she'd be like, "But it's way better than the box." And I'm like, "Sorry, I
thing
disagree."
that drives me crazy about my children. My wife and I both cook pretty well, and they're just like, "No, can we just have cheese and crackers again?" It's like, yeah, you can.
So
I spent
Kroger's
2 hours making this, but you know.
Well, I
sure.
will say Anna is good about like she'll eat salmon, she'll eat different varied vegetables.
My older daughter loves salmon, but apart from being a vegetarian, cooked salmon is gross.
You don't like salmon like at all? Like any way of
I would
preparing
before I stopped eating it, like sushi. I would love salmon and
Mhm.
tuna sushi and stuff, but cooked salmon, yucky from like an early age.
Have you and I ever had sushi together?
Probably not.
Ooh, we should do that on the Daddy-O tour.
Yeah, there's usually good
Yeah,
vegetable sushis. Pretty much any sushi place.
I'm down for that.
But my older daughter, a while ago was like, I want to learn to cook, and I was like, great, it's a great skill. Here's how you do it. And then she got a recipe book for Christmas or something, and it had like this salmon meal, and she's like, ooh, can we make that? And I was like, can you and mommy do this on a time where daddy's not at home? Because honestly, it's so disgusting and it smells so bad. I will just like leave.
Even that if we make this well, I still will not be happy with what it ends up being.
The whole house will be stinky and I won't want to be in it. But it's like, I'm not going to tell you no, you know. It's like, yeah, I want my children to learn how to cook. It's a genuinely useful life skill.
But it'd be more beneficial if you picked a couple pages over, and
because you pick something that doesn't stink. Like could you pick not the stinkiest food in the world?
What do you think about Brussels sprouts?
Love them.
Stinky.
I mean,
what do you think of asparagus?
Better pretty recently. Asparagus,
Yeah.
I don't rock with asparagus mainly because of the stinky pea thing. It's like it's not worth it.
Fine.
I love the thing I eat more than anything else lately is.
I think it's fun because most of the time your pea don't stink. You get the same smell every day, and then you eat some asparagus. It's like, oh, there you are, pea.
I can't now, but I frequently will drink so much coffee that my pee will smell like coffee.
Yes, I will do that.
But
in the morning.
I started taking Adderall this week.
Yes. Other big. Oh, you didn't finish your church story about how the sermon.
Oh, I was going
about
to.
how the sermon. Sorry, yes.
I was going to get back to it because of the Adderall. I've been keeping threads going. That's why I was like, well, we'll get back to the Craig thing. I'm not going to forget this time, baby. I took it this morning. I'm locked in. But
limitless.
Yeah. So I started Adderall over the weekend. I had to wait a day from it getting prescribed because I had to leave for that church show. So I got Friday morning, got assessed and diagnosed. Again, I was diagnosed before with ADHD, but it was not by somebody who could prescribe me anything to do anything about it. I talk about it in my special Good Grief, where when I was the guy doing the assessment. He's a nurse practitioner, not a therapist, but it's like he's the guy I have to check in with about this prescription specifically. So I was like, hey man, I'm not to like plug my work or anything, but if you watch my special Good Grief, it's really going to cover a lot of what we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks, and it'll kind of get you up to speed on what you're working with.
Just a good like whatever that is Cliff Notes.
Yeah, it's like a quick
like just to
primer
get you
on
up.
my mental illness. But I
Yeah.
talk about having ADHD in that and like the challenges of trying to get treatment for it a couple of years ago. But I had to leave for that church show. It was down in Maryland before the pharmacy had the prescription ready. So that was the last show that I did without ADHD treatment. But I did a show, like it's all church show. It's like very clean. So I kind of lean on stuff from the Dry Bar set. It was a themed night of like, this is a night for married couples. So it's like, I'll just keep talking about my wife. And I have a story about how I do comedy at weddings sometimes. I talked a lot about Mr. T. And it's like, yeah, this'll go fine. So I wrote out the set list, and it's like, I always write out a set list, and then
You pat yourself on the back.
very rarely stick to it.
Okay, yeah.
But this was like, well, I don't, the actual jokes don't matter as long as I stay on topic, right? Like, talk about your kids, your family, your wife, which is mostly what my jokes are about. So it's like, the fact that I forgot to do the one where I talk about, I forget, I don't remember what one that I was like, oh, they'll love this one. And then I didn't do it. And it's like, dang. But I do the set. It goes well. Everyone has a nice time. It's in a church, and it's like it seemed like, I didn't ask too many church details. But it seemed like more of a non-denominational, like, hey, let's all just like get together and, talk about Jesus and how we help each other. And afterwards, so the pastor, not a priest, right? Because I grew up Catholic. A lot of my kids go to Catholic schools, so a lot of their friends Catholic. So when I was telling my daughter's friend's dad the other day about it, and he's like, a priest did this? I was like, no, it was a pastor. So I do the set, right? And then the pastor gets back up, and he's like, oh, well, let's all thank Glenn. We had such a wonderful evening. And he's like, now we'll close on a prayer. He asked me, I don't know if he clocked that I'm not actually religious. I didn't talk about it, but he's like, Glenn, is it all right if we pray for you? And genuinely, to me, yes, it's fine, right? Like, I am not a religious person. I'm not offended by the idea of religion, right?
But his motivation to pray for you,
right, we'll get to
is
it.
That he may, yeah, sorry, yes. I don't
so
want to,
like,
I don't want to.
Do you mind if we pray for you? Which I genuinely appreciated, that he didn't just like do it anyway. But he's like, do you mind if we pray for you? I was like, I would be honored, honestly. And he does it, but the prayer he's like, let's all pray for Glenn. And he starts referencing stuff from my set. He's like, let's all pray for Glenn and how he struggles with his goofy last name, how his eyes don't work good, his ridiculous clown shoes.
How about his kids don't respect him?
He just starts
and like,
roasting me mid-prayer.
Yeah.
And it was so genuinely
It's funny that your friend thought that a priest wouldn't do that. Like, oh, a priest wouldn't be pious to judge somebody else in front of their congregation.
No, he wasn't being judgmental. He wasn't like doing it. He wasn't doing it dickishly. He was like in on the joke of like, oh, Glenn will think this is funny. And he's right.
Do you think that, or do you think he clocked
No,
sins?
I genuinely think that. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right. No, it's not like I think I mentioned that I don't drink anymore, which I don't usually bring up during shows, but it tied into they made a mocktail in my honor for the event. Where it was.
Oh, are you just sure that the pastor wasn't feeling threatened, like C-3PO, like with the Ewoks?
He wants to do that.
Yeah, he's just like Buckland tickle.
Maybe, but
like pray for that clown.
There was like I forget what they called it, some pun about my name. But other venues have done that before, but it's always an actual cocktail. So it's like, oh, I would try one, but I don't drink. And it's like, so what is in this mocktail? And they're like, it's like Sprite and juice or whatever. And I was like, see, I love that, because I told them, I was like, I don't drink. I can actually have one of these. And like, do you want one? I was like, not really, but I like that I could, You're
like, is that a treat? No.
So if I was like, oh, I don't drink, and then like the priest went up, he's like, let's all help. We'll pray for Glenn and his struggle with alcoholism. And I'm like, well, no, it's just because I have. It's an allergic.
You had your time. This is my time. Please sit down, sir.
It didn't feel like he was like bullying me in any way. It was genuinely like
bullying you in the confines of his parameters of religion.
All of the examples that was like, it was very funny.
It was okay.
It was very touched in a way. It's like, it's like I feel. Do I got to go to church more?
No,
Like, this
because
is-
not all churches,
but
not all
then
the
it's
prayers
like-
are about Glenn.
But that was the second thought. It's like, oh, right now they're not going to do this every time.
It's
you
not
know?
going to be itemized for me,
Right.
Unless you're doing a VR like
I'm
church where
such a
you pick.
narcissist. If the priest is like, Glenn, here's an hour where we're going to talk about you. Oh, I'm there. every
Yeah,
week, you know?
it's the same as like you have and I have. We've listened to this podcast. We will listen to this episode. Future selves will
Yeah.
listen
Oh, I
to me
listened
saying
to
that we're
last week's
listening.
episode on the drive home
I-
from that game.
Okay, who else does that? But if a church that you went to, even if it wasn't all Glenn centric, because that
Yeah.
might get too much. If he is
No,
like,
man.
and now in the portion of Mass where we read from the book of Glenn, it's like, let's all look back on like, and then they sang a song that
Mhm.
incorporated some of your thoughts or jokes. Like,
I'd be into
yeah, I'd be into it.
it. So that was the last show because then I got home and then picked up my prescription Saturday morning. And then I took my first Adderall and I sat down and watched Kraven the Hunter.
Tell me about that.
So Kraven the Hunter is it's bad. It's not a good movie. It's bad.
Have you seen Madam Web?
Yeah.
I haven't seen
also, I saw Madam Web in theaters, baby. Well, that was because I was on the road and it's like I'm
Yeah.
driving. I'm really tired.
It's funny.
I'm
That's
not
the
gonna
only reason
stop.
I've seen Venom. That
Yeah.
first Venom movie is I was on the road.
It's like I was driving home from like wherever, and it's like I have hours and hours to go.
Mhm.
I am not ready to stop for the night, but I need a break, and I'm pretty tired. What movie's starting now? And I'll just nod off in the middle of it, right?
That's so funny. If you could break down the charting of like how much money it made, like if you're questioning people, like,
Mhm.
why did you go see it? I really want to see it. I love Spider-Man. I love Dakota Johnson. I was driving hours and hours and I needed a break. And that was the only thing that was showing it this time. It's
I
like
picked-
90% of people.
Yeah.
That is the reason.
Well, there were other movies. There were probably ones that I wanted to see more, but it's like, no, I just need a comfortable chair that I can like fall asleep in for a little bit and not
Yeah.
feel bad. So what Kraven the Hunter was bad, but I was on Adderall. I was just like, I'm paying attention where
So much.
in a way. So typically if I watch anything at home, I'm playing backgammon on my phone while I do it.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Pausing,
and-
going to the bathroom, breaking the flow, doing
Yeah.
whatever.
Like I
Yeah.
took a couple breaks from Kraven because it was bad, and it was like, but I wasn't also doing something else. I was just sitting there on my couch. I was also eating a bagel sandwich, but I wasn't playing backgammon or like texting you, or it's just like it's Kraven the Hunter time, baby.
Yeah.
Let's see it. Let's see how well this Adderall works. If I can pay attention to this boring bad movie. And I made it through it. It sucks. But then I had a show that night. So I'm supposed to take 2 doses of Adderall a day. And the schedule that they gave me to do it, I think, is built more around like a classic 9 to 5 job than
Your brain is
than
off at
me.
6 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, take it when you first get up and then again around lunchtime. And it's like, so I will do that. There's like these first 2 weeks, I have like, I think it's 10 milligrams. It's like, we're just trying to figure out what the right dose is. Like, is
Mhm.
this the right medication? We got to try something else. So it's like, I will follow orders for this 2 weeks in the service of dialing in the right dose or whatever. But it's like, well, yeah, I got it. I didn't get the prescription until like the pharmacy opened at 10, right? So I couldn't get it till shortly after that. So I took the first one. It's like, well, I'm supposed to take the second one at noon, but I was about 3 hours late. I'll take it at like 3. And then I had the show that night, but I was like, oh, should I take it before this show? Because it was like I was headlining a fundraiser. So it's like not terribly high stakes, but you know, what is when this is our job. But it wasn't like I'm not doing 10 minutes at a club. It's like I gotta go talk for an hour for people who are paying me quite a bit of money to be there.
Yeah. The most that you usually get paid. Charity
but
shows.
The reaction to the morning dose wasn't, you know, I've heard people talk about it like it's the limitless pill where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
suddenly like I'm focused. It's like it's helped a little bit, absolutely. Like no question, there's an improvement since I've been taking it. But it's not like I was worried. I'm like, oh, what if the dose is too high and then I'm like strung out or whatever.
Yeah. You're like drooling.
But that was my first time performing with these meds, and a couple people went up to give speeches about like what it was a YMCA fundraiser about like what the YMCA means to them. And the one, I think 2 of the women who were giving speeches both brought up that like they have autistic children and the Y is so welcoming. And I'm like, well, I talked to the guy who did the screening for ADHD. I mentioned, I was like, I would also like to be screened and get like an official assessment for autism. And he's like, well, we don't do that. I can recommend you. He's like, I do think we should work out the ADHD stuff first.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, because there's overlap in symptoms. So if we, treat your ADHD and then you maybe don't have to worry about it. But also there's like a huge waiting list, and some places aren't doing assessments for adults because there's so many children like waiting for these assessments. And I'm like, honestly, the one that is like detrimental to my day to day is the ADHD. The autism stuff, I was talking to my wife about it last night. I was like, the only thing that would change for me if I get an official diagnosis of autism is I would write jokes about it. Like,
you would feel comfortable
talking
about it.
I don't think I need any more accommodations from like a job because I don't really have one, or I don't go to school. It's just like to be more self-aware, I guess. But there's also like there's the RADS assessment, which was like developed kind of by autistic people for autistic people to like self-diagnose kind of. And my score on that bad boy was pretty impressive. So it's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm actually gonna bother following up with an official assessment, but either way, it'll be a couple weeks from now after I get all the ADHD stuff locked in. But I talked about it at the Y show. It was like, you guys, this is the first, because I do like, I'm a little selective about what fundraisers I will do. There's like obviously. Like the local Republican Party has reached out to me in the past to be like, do you want to do a fundraiser for our candidate?
Wild.
I was like, I would actually rather burn your office down if I'm being frank. So no. But the YMCA thing, I'm like, yes, absolutely. I used to work at a YMCA. I went to preschool at a YMCA. My kids go to camp there. Like, yes, I'm on board with what you guys got going on. Happy to help. So I talked about that in the set, and I was like, and you guys this is the first show I'm doing. I got diagnosed and prescribed Adderall, took the first dose this morning. So like, you guys are the first audience to ever get like full power me. But
I'm juiced Glenn Tickle in the record books. When I go to the Hall of Fame of Comedy, there's going to be an asterisk next to my name of everything that came after the Adderall.
Because these women went up and gave like these meaningful speeches about like what the Y meant for them and their autistic children. I was like, also, I'm working on getting assessed as autistic, and I talked about that a little bit, which I brought up sometimes on stage, where it's not like I'm comfortable talking about it as a thing that I'm like working towards, not, hey, here's a joke about how I'm autistic, so I will now speak for the entire autistic community. But it is just like, yeah, I think I got this. And so the joke that I've been doing now is like, everybody that I tell that to, no one has been like, really? Everyone's like,
no, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. But the line that follows that is like, when I bring up to the audience, is like, oh, I'm in the process of trying to like get assessed for autism. And you're probably thinking, well, Glenn, you can't be autistic. You talk about Mr. T the regular amount. And to say that
the regular amount,
to say it that late in the set, where I just keep bringing him up, and it's so fun for me. Where like it works, but again, to bring
I'm
up,
telling you, man, you should. It's that joke back about how you are Mr. T, and your next special should be called Mr. T.
Maybe. But the joke, to bring it to benign violation, where it's like, I'm not making fun of autistic people, right? Like, I am playing a little bit on some stereotypes. Where a woman in the class that I took, her set was about how she's autistic. She got diagnosed later in life, and there's a line where she's like, "Oh," and in her set where she's like, "Oh, like a common thing for autistic people to really like is trains," and she didn't do that line at the grad show. But I have it on under my sweater right now, but I have my map of the Budapest public transit system shirt that I bought when I was over there, because genuinely my favorite thing to do in Budapest was to ride the tram around the city to like look at stuff.
Of course, there's a schedule, there's a track there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it
So
all
she's like,
checks.
oh, I'm like, I wore this sweater and this shirt to the grad show. I was like, oh, after her set, I'll just go up in the t-shirt and
Yeah.
then make the point of like, oh, like she mentioned, like autistic people love trains for no reason. This happens to be my favorite t-shirt. It is a map of the Budapest public transit system.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, well, that's a stereotype about autistic people is they love trains. Not all autistic people love trains, you know. I like them. I'm probably autistic, as it turns out. So it is the thing of like, the violation is if you're making jokes about a stereotype about a group of people, that's a violation, right? You can make it benign, and a way to do that is like, well, yeah, this is about me. It is me saying, I am working through the diagnosis process of autism. Here's what applies to me and also autistic people. But I still don't quite feel comfortable making blanket statements about like, well, as an autistic man, this is what it's like. That still feels a little yucky without an official diagnosis, but that process is more difficult than I think I realized it would be initially. But also it's made more difficult because I do have ADHD for sure. So hopefully,
I think for me personally, this goes more underneath, and again, this goes with my everything has changed and nothing has changed, is this idea of finding your voice in the social media age, looking for the singularity. Like, who is that comedian? Well, that's the autistic comedian. So I think speaking out as like, I am autistic and this is me.
yeah,
That again, it feels more marketing and branding than
I guess. And there are autistic comics who that's like such a big part of their set.
right.
And
And I think even if you got the diagnosis, that probably wouldn't change how you talk about it. It may
No.
change a couple, like,
it would change some
lead-in
of
lines.
the wording, you know.
I think it would be like, I've been diagnosed autistic. So for me, that's enough validation for me to now say this, and this.
sure.
To attack it like I have the experience. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think if someone's like, I'm autistic and this is my set about being autistic, it could be just as good as a guy going up there with a guitar being like, I write parody songs and here we go. Could be just
It's
as good,
I
could be
mean,
just
I
as bad.
because I'm so self-centered, I think the jokes are still just about me specifically.
Right.
Like, there's, you know, you get a lot of comics from different backgrounds will be like, oh, like I'm an Indian woman, so here's all my jokes about what being an Indian American woman feels like. And it is like, broad might not be the right term, of just like they're trying to say these things about like an entire cultural experience and their lived experience within that world, you know.
And they're also incredibly, like any comic is for the most part, whether it's us being dads, of what, again, talking about Bandit Healer and your perceptions of what a good dad is versus what a bad dad is, what a realistic dad is. An Indian woman is just like, I understand if I'm good enough at my job, what your perception is of Indian women, say maybe arranged marriages, say maybe this, and this. But so then if she subverts your expectations or exactly 100% meets it, in different varying levels of bluntness or in a monotone, boring way, or completely divergent. Like, so, you know, my parents, this, and this, you know, and my dad's a doctor. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's good examples of this and bad examples of this, you know.
but I'm saying even the good examples can fit a mapped trope of like, well, here's the road you went down. You could either do the completely expected and still get a good laugh, or the unexpected, and you could also get, I think, is equally a good laugh. I don't think there is a definition of doing the violation or just following the it's still a violation, but the what you expect.
I think it comes down to how I write jokes.
Oh yeah, for you, yeah.
Of like, so let's say I have another appointment with this guy next Friday, and he's like, oh, actually, our office just started doing autism assessments. We're going to do it right now. And then at the end of that appointment, he's like, yeah, man, you're pretty autistic. And then I was like, great, now I'm going to write jokes. I'm not going to like go through writing exercises of like, all right, what do people think about autistic people? All right, people know autistic people love trains, so I should probably write train jokes. it is like I would actually rather just write a joke about how much I loved riding the tram around Budapest.
But
like,
now
yeah,
you feel comfortable and validated personally because you were part of the club because a medical professional has said it's okay, Glenn. You are
kind of, yeah.
autistic.
But
No,
I mean,
I'm not saying
I'll-
that as a
I'll
judgment.
do
It's
that.
just
I'll do that joke anyway. Like
Yeah.
I would still do a joke about. I'm using the train example because again,
Mhm.
easily understandable autism stereotype. But it's like, well, I would do the joke regardless of a diagnosis because the joke is still about me. It's like it is true. I went to Budapest, Hungary, and my favorite thing while I was there was the public transit. And it's like, well, yeah, like that's autism or not, weird thing to really enjoy. Like everyone's like, oh, what was your favorite thing? Riding the choo-choo train around. So it was great.
and you're like, and I don't feel bad about it because it just makes you feel good being like, who doesn't want to ride a train? Like, come on now.
Yeah, it's efficient, gets a lot of people around. I was giving people directions in Hungarian. Like that's how confident I was. Because after a couple days, it's like I would be bored in the hotel room because like my sister and I had some events planned, but then there was like also downtime because it's like I love my sister, right? I do not need to spend every minute of every day with her on vacation. But she like similarly, she's like, no, yeah, we can go get dinner, but like a couple hours, I'm gonna go do other stuff. And it's like, yeah, of course, live your life. But it's like
we are adults.
Yeah, it's if I had some time to kill, it's like, well, I don't want to just like take a 3-hour nap in the middle of the afternoon on this trip. I would rather like
you don't want to
experience
time.
it
Yeah, you don't want to
more.
just time travel to get to the next thing. Like,
Yeah.
all right, I'll just sleep
It's like,
until.
well, I'm gonna get on the tram and just ride around for a while. Like I'll see a different part of the city. I'll find somewhere to get something to eat or coffee or whatever. And I would do that. And then like by the end of my week-long trip, I would be doing that. And then people are asking, oh, how do you get here? And I'd been practicing my Hungarian. And it's like how to get around is what you learn in like basic language lessons for any language. So it's like, yeah, I know the words for the directions. I understand what you are asking, and I've been riding this thing pretty much for 4 days straight. So
They gave me a conductor hat.
I can get you to District 7. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on. And I'm sure the joke version of it that I was doing there is like, and I'm sure my Hungarian is bad enough that like I send a couple people to the wrong places, but in my heart, I knew the answer. And I think that's what's important.
Well, now we have to wrap it up because I do have an appointment for my twin boys at 2:00, and I have to Dan piss, not Dave piss. I have to Dan
like
piss.
That you're Gallagher doing Dave piss. We've said it before. We gotta get Brian on to talk about this.
Yeah, yeah. Just to be like, hey, do you have any idea we talk about it that much? And he's like, do you guys know any other specifics? And we're like, no. But
O Street Baby, I know specifics. I just really brought them up with you.
I don't.
I'll have to send you the special.
And I'll have to not watch it because I don't care.
You should. It's fun.
Sure.
Will it be fun to a guy who doesn't already know and like Brian? I don't know. We'll find out. Interesting
experiment next time on Daddy-O.
It's the Daddy-O Show.
Having an out theme cracks me up. Something I didn't bring